college football coach Phil Bennett. Mondays at 5, we have discussed even before the season. And now, Phil, we know who the 12 teams are, the automatic buys, and then who plays at home in the first round. Thank you for your time. I'd like to start with Arizona State. You coached there for a little bit, and what they did, they beat the living hell out of Iowa State, who's a pretty good football team with Matt Campbell. I mean, they are red hot. Your thoughts about the Sun Devils?
I think you summed it up really well. You know, in all of their games, of course, I know the head coach, but the defensive coordinator, Brian Ward, has been somewhat of I've been a mentor to him through his career. Thought he was a great coach going in there. I really think what they have done defensively has been phenomenal. And I think Marcus Herrero, the offensive coordinator, was a key hire. I think the head coach saw after last year that he didn't fit with Baldwin. He immediately made a change, which I thought was wise. And I think those two coordinators are really keeping it together and doing a heck of a job.
Phil, that was a game that early on Iowa State, looked like it was going to be back and forth. Is it just that a guy like Cam Scatterbo can be so demoralizing to you and just a matchup nightmare that now you're all worried about him and then Sam Leavitt can go feast?
I thought last year when I watched him, I said, who the hell is this guy? and he reminded me of the kid that was at Missouri last year, who I think made an NFL roster. But he was thicker, maybe as fast. And somebody said, he's from Sacramento State. And, every time I watched him, he was dynamic last year. This year, I mean, he has gone to another level. I don't know if y'all have seen this, but did you see his high school, the best run of his high school career?
My God, yes, I did.
I think everybody on the team, on the opposing defense, had one or two chances to tackle him and couldn't get him down. I don't know if I've ever seen a better run. And they were getting on him about the Heisman pose. I don't care who this year, the kid at Boise, the Colorado guys, none of them have outperformed what he's done for a team that was picked last. And by the way, I have to ask you, David.
Yep.
What was your vote on them?
Oh, I had him 10. I had him 16th.
I had him 15th, Phil. I saw something.
I had Colorado around 10, 12. No, but I had him 16th, dead last. Not even. I don't even think maybe Cincinnati was 15th.
Wow.
Yeah, I just don't think that. I think in the portal era, and especially in the Big 12, where everybody is so eye level with each other, I think it's basically like pulling names out of a hat sometimes. You just don't know who. Like, how did we know Sam Leavitt was going to be as good as he was, or all these transfers were going to hit, or the schedule worked out the way that it did? But yeah, it's a great story that they went from 15, 16 to 1. That's incredible. The other championship games. I think probably every college football program in America leads off with the SEC and Big Ten, but we just led off with the Big 12, so I'm going to go to the ACC and really do it differently here. You know SMU pretty well as well. What a fight by them. Clemson gets the win. Your thoughts on how that all went down, the showing from Rhett Lashley and the Ponies, and Dabo and the Tigers are kings of the ACC once again.
I thought without question, Craig, that SMU deserved to be in the 12 for a season. It's a season of work. I mentioned to a friend of mine today that Alabama's AD, who's a nice guy, I know him, Greg Byrne, but he said, we're going to look at our non-conference schedule. Their non-conference schedule is nothing, a 5-7 Wisconsin, USF, Mercer, and nobody. It wasn't the issue. Their issue was losing to 500 Oklahoma, 500 Vanderbilt. SMU beat their arch rival TCU, which is a Big 12 team. They went on the road. They won at Duke, who had a nice year. I just felt like they were a team, even with a loss. And with that said, I felt like in the loss, even in the first half, they had played so poorly. I mean, they had one guy that busted 3 coverages, and that would happen 1 in 10 years. And I thought, you know what? I said, they're going to come back. and they did, and they did because if they played, I think if they played Clemson 5 times, they would beat them 4. I thought that I think they're a big time program right now.
So, Phil, nobody's always had. I mean, when there was 2 teams that would split a national title, which led to the BCS, which led to the computer system, although it still had human instincts in it because of the polls. And then there were 4. Now there's 12. So someone's always going to be mad. Like Florida State, I think, had every right to just be absolutely furious for what happened to them. What are your thoughts about extending this to more, even though it's going to be 12 for the next couple of years? What are the good pros and cons with that?
If you're not going to do it the way Division FCS does it, I mean, with picking the champions and and playing it like they've done it forever with the champions, and you have a couple of at large, I would say no. Don't water it down any more than it is. I think that you look at all the teams, and like we said, Arizona State, or can they win the national championship? Who knows? But it's sort of like the NCAA basketball tournament. You get hot at the right time, and you just don't know. People say, well, Oregon's going to win it. Let me tell you something. If you watch the Oregon and Penn State game, if Penn State doesn't turn the ball over, they're going to win that game. And I don't think, I said it a year ago, I don't think Oregon can win a national championship playing the defense that they play right now. Penn State had 550 yards, would have had more. Only thing they did, they had 2 turnovers. They rushed for almost 300 yards. You're not going to win the national championship giving up 300 yards. So with that said, somebody I believe is going to beat, or I don't care if they've got to bye. I think somebody's going to beat them because I don't think they're good enough defensively to be a champion. I could be wrong, but if they do, they better score every time they get the ball.
Phil, what would you say are the flaws that Texas and Georgia have? There was an extremely physical game. Doesn't look like we're going to have Carson back. We'll see, how Gunner Stockton rebounds from that hit he took at the end of the game. But Quinn Ewers has not been spectacular, but their defense is just absolutely suffocating and unbelievable. But as they both move forward in this playoff, how do you see, especially after the way that game played out?
I think Texas is the favorite of the whole thing. And I'm going to tell you why. I agree with you 100%. I think Ewing has been at the best just okay. And I think that in that game, I could relate with Sarkisian. There were some plays that I'm telling you that they were literally tackling their defensive ends and no call. The penalty that Texas got, a huge interception, could have turned the whole game around. They called them offsides, and there was no offsides. I mean, they kept showing it, looking for it. I think that playing A&M and then the next week playing Georgia was a disadvantage for Texas, because I don't care who you are. It's hard to stay at that level, to play a rivalry game and then go back and play a team that had beat you earlier in the season. I think Georgia, it's going to be interesting. I think Kirby does a great job. He gets his kids ready to play. I think it's obvious they're not as talented as they've been, but they still find ways to win. And I think with that, I said that earlier, I think that Texas, with the path that they have with Clemson and they're on out, that they have a chance to take this thing.
Yeah, they have Clemson. If they win, they have Arizona State, which would be the next round, which would be kind of a fun matchup. Although, Texas couldn't run the ball. After they had gashed A&M, they had nothing in the run game. Wisner nor anyone else, they had nothing. It seems like they have all these double-digit yardage plays, passing, Ewers, whoever, and yet they come away empty.
Right.
Like over and over. Like I don't know how many times they were in Georgia territory. I want to guess 8 or 9 times.
Yeah, they did not play very well in the red zone. I want to say that they had almost 200 more yards offense than what Georgia did. and you know, it's that old saying, it's where you get those yards that matters. And you know, my son coaches an Incarnate Word, and they played Villanova in the playoffs in San Antonio. They had 478 yards offense. Villanova had 138, and it was a 13-6 game. So you know, yards are one thing; they're stat, but scoring is the key.
But your son and the Cardinals are moving on, aren't they?
Yeah. They're going. I'm in there right now helping them with a little bit of game planning. Jim Gush and I've been talking. They've got South Dakota State, so that's why my eyes are a little bit swollen right now looking at a computer.
Gotcha.
And probably looking at how good South Dakota State is, too, because aren't they like the 2 times defending? Yeah. They're
real good. Well coached, good players.
So, Coach, I'm not sure how much you saw what was going on Friday with Mike Gundy, but a lot of reports started coming out that he and the school itself were kind of at a impasse. They wanted him to take a pay cut, and there's a lot of back and forth going on. They've resolved it appears, and he is going to be back in Stillwater for at least one more season. How thin is the ice, you think, in a situation like that? I mean, he's had problems in the past with different. I mean, he's been there so long, you're bound to, but it just feels like a round peg in a square hole right now with them. Is that tenable, that situation, you think, or when you start to have public arguments like that, does that eventually lead to an exit sooner rather than later, in your opinion?
Craig, you know, they have that saying that I don't care who you are. At some point, they're tired of you. And I think that's the case. I think that the people, you know, he's done a wonderful job there. You can't deny that. But I think he has got a frustration level that he expresses. I think some of the people who are in charge don't like it. I think he sort of made a power play. Well, I've been here. I've got a 7-year contract. You owe me, you know, and my sources told me that they felt like they could fire him with cause. How that happens, I don't know. But, you know, I don't see it going much longer than this year. You know, he had some really good coaches on the staff. I've played them many times. They've done a great job, and it looks like they're fixing to blow the thing up, and new offensive coordinators bringing his guy in, new defensive coordinators bringing his group. And I think it very much could be the end of an era.
Yeah, that'd be tough, especially the way the year ended. Let me ask you, Baylor and LSU. LSU might end up with a lot of players who opt out. That also has a big impact on a lot of these bowl games, which I don't like that part of it, but it's a part of it. But LSU with a team that at times you just like salivate over who they have, but they've been inconsistent. Baylor is hot. Your thoughts about this game?
They also have about 15 guys who are not going to play in this bowl game.
That's what I just mentioned.
Sorry,
yeah, that's okay because we don't know exactly how many are going to opt out, which could affect a lot of things. Yeah,
I think it's a great draw for Baylor. You know, Baylor's in the prove-it stage right now. They're going to have guys wanting to play, and I don't care if they you know, I watched LSU enough. I watched them against you know, Baylor would beat them. I was hoping they would play A&M. I wanted to know Southwest Conference rivalry, you know, and I think Baylor will prepare like they want to be the Texas Bowl champion, and I think they will get after. I still don't think LSU is sound defensively. They're erratic on offense. They don't have a running game. Play a little bit of pass defense, and Baylor's going to be the Big 12 Texas Bowl champion.
You weren't a part of the staff. You weren't there when they lost to Illinois in the Texas Bowl.
No,
were you?
No.
Norwood was the defensive coordinator.
Where, after that game, I tell that story.
Yeah.
I was going back to, I was the interim head coach at Pitt, and the next day Art called me. I went to the game though, and I drank Bud. I drank Bud Light. This is a true statement. I drank Bud Light or Bud Light Lime in the end zone. It was raining like hell because my daughter played soccer at Baylor, my stepdaughter, Katie, and these guys sitting there, and I said, my God, why can't they line up right on defense and stop that stretch? Illinois had a running back that was killing them.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy looked at me. He goes, I don't know who the hell you are, but you act like you know how to stop him. I said, I do.
Paul, you hear what he said?
Yeah.
In the pregame tailgate, pouring down rain, drinking a Bud Light. Remember, we had to walk from our setup like about a half a mile to get to the stadium. It was miserable.
I was miserable. I was angry. You got there before I did, and nobody would drive me over, so I had to walk in this pouring rain. No one at the stadium knew where I was supposed to go, and I was ready to punch someone. And I sat in the air conditioning in the press box just freezing while he laughed at me the whole time.
It was a torrential rain. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, my Katie brought a bunch of soccer players here. They spent the night. They raised hell all night. And the next day, my wife she goes, let's go watch the Baylor game. I said, Julie, it's raining like crazy. And then this is how she got me. She goes, we can go to Papado's before the game. And I said, okay. And
Yeah.
we go to Papado's, and swear to goodness, the next day, I'm driving back to the airport. This is why you never know what's going to happen. And my phone rings. I pick it up, and he goes, "How's my birthday boy?"
Oh.
I said, "Hell, I was at your game yesterday." He goes, "No, you weren't." I said, "Yeah, I was." And the rest is history.
Illinois had a defensive lineman too.
Yeah, they did.
The Jet, or so I don't know.
Yeah,
he was a
Legion,
bad
Corey
dude.
Legion.
Yeah.
He was just eating them up.
But the running back had balance, strength, power, and Baylor had no chance. So my question then to wrap it up with you. Next year, you guys made the run with RG3 and obviously explosive. You went down to San Antonio and you had that shootout with Washington.
Yeah.
How much does a bowl win mean to a program? Now, Baylor had the Sugar Bowl win in 2021, best year ever. But how much does a bowl win for a young team who's trying to build again help besides the number of practices?
I thought many times, I've thought about that game, and I told you this. We were not very talented. We didn't have a lot of depth, but we found a way. We created, defensively, I took more gambles that year than I've ever taken. And we found a way. Well, I think did we win 10 or 11 games that year?
10-3.
10-3.
10-3, yeah.
And in that game, I can tell you, this is honest God truth. I'm going to do it fast. KJ Morton, I couldn't find him before the game. Couldn't find him. And I'm trying to make these adjustments. We're fixing to kick off. He was outside because his family from Georgia couldn't get their tickets. He was in his uniform outside the Alamo Dome. That's where they found him. And he gave up 2 touchdowns before a cat could lick his you-know-what. and we just stayed in the game. And I'll never forget, I turned to Art. I said, this could be long. He goes, hey, we'll score every time they do. And we did. And we found a way. But in answer to your question, it was huge. It was huge. It completed, nobody had us winning 10 games. And we started the season beating a team, TCU, up the road that had beat us by 60 the year before. And it was huge. And I think it shot us into the next year. And the next year, it gave us an expectancy that we became used to. And that's what I've seen this year with Baylor. All of a sudden, their expectancy when they go out against Kansas, hey, whatever we got to do to win, whatever we got to do to win. And I think another team that I mentioned that their defense wasn't great. Oregon's like that. Oregon will win a shootout. They'll win a close one. They'll win a blowout. You find a way to do it when you have confidence.
Yep. Hey, man, hope you had a great weekend. We have 12 now to as we get closer to those first games, we'll start to maybe break down some tendencies. And good luck with Incarnate Word and much more with your son. That's great news about them moving on.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Phil Bennett. One of his favorite restaurants in the College Station area is the Republic Steakhouse of Texas, which he was talking about going to Papado's. That got his attention. But Republic Steakhouse of Texas, he and his wife loved that place.